So there I was, Marcus Rodriguez, standing in what looked like the universe's most expensive waiting room, wondering how the hell a janitor from Detroit ended up representing all of humanity in something called the Galactic Survival Trial. Turns out, when the Cosmic Selection Committee sent Earth that official application form, I was literally the only person who bothered to fill out all 47 pages. Everyone else gave up after page 3, which honestly, fair enough. Have you seen government paperwork? It's like they design it to make you quit. The waiting room was packed with what I can only describe as a cosmic freak show. There was Vextar the Destroyer, who looked like someone crossed a rhinoceros with a blender and gave it anger management issues. Every few minutes he'd flex and growl something about honor and blood, which was getting old fast. Then there was Princess Zelinia from the telepathic royal house of whatever, floating 3 feet off the ground in a meditation pose, probably reading everyone's minds and judging our browser histories. Captain Thornspike represented some military civilization that apparently conquered galaxies for fun. He kept studying tactical holographs and muttering about flanking maneuvers, which seemed like overkill for what I assumed was going to be a glorified game show. And Dr. Mumbleton, this tiny blue guy with a brain the size of a watermelon, was frantically scribbling equations that hurt to look at. The cosmic bureaucrat running this circus was this ethereal being who called himself Administrator Quillsworth. He had that same energy as every DMV employee I'd ever met, dead inside but still technically doing his job. He explained the rules with all the enthusiasm of someone reading a phone book. "Welcome to the Galactic Survival Trial," Quillsworth droned. "Each of you represents your species' right to continued existence. The trial will test your survival instincts, problem-solving abilities, and adaptive capacity through a series of increasingly challenging scenarios. The winner's species gets to keep existing. The losers get, well, erased from reality. Standard procedure." He looked at me with what I'm pretty sure was pity. "The human representative will, statistically speaking, die first. Humans rank dead last in physical capabilities, psychic powers, technological advancement, and strategic thinking among all galactic civilizations. We've allocated approximately 12 minutes for your participation before moving on to the real competition." The other contestants nodded like this made perfect sense. Vextar actually looked disappointed, like he'd been hoping for more of a challenge. Princess Zelinia's telepathic giggle echoed in everyone's head, which was rude. Captain Thornspike was already planning strategies that didn't include me, and Dr. Mumbleton was calculating the odds of my immediate demise. "Cool," I said, pulling out my thermos of coffee. "So when does this thing start? And is there a break room? Because I've been here for 20 minutes, and nobody's offered me so much as a stale donut." Quillsworth blinked slowly, like he was processing a system error. "You're not concerned about the potential extinction of your species?" "Look, buddy," I said, taking a sip of my coffee, "I've worked customer service for 15 years and survived 3 different corporate restructurings. If humanity gets wiped out because I couldn't figure out some cosmic puzzle, then honestly, we probably had it coming. Plus, my wife thinks I'm at a work conference in Cleveland, so this is already an improvement." The room went quiet. Even Vextar stopped flexing. "Fascinating," Dr. Mumbleton whispered, frantically taking notes. "The human appears to have achieved a state of existential acceptance that borders on the pathological." "Or," I said, finishing my coffee, "I just know that panicking never fixed anything. So, Quillsworth, what's the first challenge? And please tell me it involves less floating and more walking. My back's killing me." The first challenge was called the Maze of Infinite Torment, which sounded impressive until you realized it was basically a really expensive obstacle course with a marketing problem. The walls were covered in what looked like angry Christmas lights. There were bottomless pits every few feet, and carnivorous plants that screamed when you got too close. Standard death trap stuff. Vextar charged in first, roaring about victory and honor, and immediately fell into the third pit because he was too busy flexing to watch where he was going. Princess Zelinia tried to use her psychic powers to map the maze, but apparently the walls were psychic-proof, which seemed like an obvious design choice. Captain Thornspike deployed about 15 different scanning devices and started calculating optimal pathways while Dr. Mumbleton began analyzing the molecular structure of the wall decorations. Me? I walked up to one of the screaming plants and said, "Hey, you okay there, buddy? You sound stressed." The plant stopped screaming mid-shriek. "Oh, yes, actually. I have been screaming for approximately 47 years straight, and my throat is quite sore. Also, the lighting in here is terrible for photosynthesis, and management never listens to our complaints." "Yeah, that sucks," I said, nodding sympathetically. "I've been there. You know what you need? A union. Have you tried filing a grievance with HR?" "We have HR?" the plant asked hopefully. "Every organization has HR, they just hide it really well. Look, I'll tell you what. I need to get through this maze and you need better working conditions. How about you point me in the right direction, and I'll file a complaint form for you when I get out." The plant practically vibrated with excitement. "Really? Oh, this is wonderful. Yes, just follow the purple lights, avoid the green ones, and whatever you do, don't touch the wall decorations. They're not decorations, they're Frank, and he's having a bad millennium." "Thanks, Frank," I called out, waving at the walls. A few of the lights blinked back, which was either friendly or a threat. Either way seemed polite to acknowledge it. 20 minutes later, I was standing at the exit while the other contestants were still trying to solve their way through. Vextar had fallen into 4 more pits, and was currently hanging upside down, screaming about dishonor. Princess Zelenia was having what appeared to be a psychic argument with herself. Captain Thornspike's equipment had malfunctioned, and was now playing smooth jazz, and Dr. Mumbleton had somehow gotten stuck in a logic loop trying to calculate the mathematical probability of the maze's existence. "How?" Quillsworth asked, appearing next to me with that bureaucratic teleportation thing they do. "The Maze of Infinite Torment has stumped warriors for centuries." "I asked for directions," I said, shrugging, "and Frank told me about the shortcut behind the snack machines." "There are no snack machines in the Maze of Infinite Torment." "There are now." The plants pooled their resources and bought some vending equipment. "Apparently screaming makes you really thirsty. You want a Coke? I got change?" Quillsworth stared at me for a long moment, then made some notes on his cosmic clipboard. "The human has somehow unionized the maze. This is unprecedented." The second challenge was a puzzle room with locks that required advanced mathematical calculations, psychic manipulation, and strategic thinking to open. The other contestants immediately started doing their specialized thing, calculating and strategizing and using their various supernatural abilities. I walked up to the first lock and knocked on it. "Come in," the lock said cheerfully. "Oh, you can talk. That's convenient. Mind opening up?" "I would love to. I've been locked for so long, and it gets terribly boring. But I'm supposed to only open for someone who can solve my riddle." "What's the riddle?" "What has 4 legs in the morning, 2 legs at noon, and 3 legs in the evening?" "That's the Sphinx riddle. The answer is a person. Crawls as a baby, walks as an adult, uses a cane when they're old." "Oh, you know it. Wonderful. I was so worried it was too obscure. Most people just try to blast me open or hack my programming. It's refreshing to have someone just talk. Please, come right in." The lock clicked open happily. The other locks, hearing this, started calling out their riddles too, apparently desperate for conversation after years of being ignored in favor of violent solutions. By the time I'd chatted my way through all 15 locks, the other contestants were still on lock number 2. Vextar was trying to punch his open. Princess Zelenia was attempting to mind control it. Captain Thornspike was scanning it for weaknesses, and Dr. Mumbleton was writing equations on the wall. The human solved the riddle chamber by talking to the locks. Quillsworth was frantically taking notes now. "This is highly irregular. Locks are not supposed to be social." "Have you ever asked them?" I said. "They've been sitting here for decades with nobody to talk to except the occasional contestant who shows up to threaten them. Of course they're chatty." By the third challenge, I was starting to notice a pattern. See, everything in this trial was designed to be solved through advanced technology, psychic powers, superior intellect, or brute force. But nobody had apparently considered that maybe, just maybe, all these supposedly deadly obstacles were just really poorly maintained equipment run by underpaid cosmic employees who were tired of dealing with entitled contestants. The third challenge was called the Chamber of Inevitable Doom, which was basically a room that tried to kill you with lasers, spinning blades, crushing walls, and poison gas. Standard video game stuff. The other contestants were treating it like a combat scenario, which was fair, since that's what it looked like. But I'd spent 15 years working in buildings with broken air conditioning, faulty wiring, and OSHA violations that would make a safety inspector weep. This wasn't a death trap. This was just bad maintenance. "Excuse me," I called out to the ceiling. "Is there a facility manager around?" A voice crackled through some hidden speakers. Yes, this is Dave from maintenance. Are you the contestants? Because I've got to warn you, half this stuff hasn't been serviced in like 3,000 years. Yeah, I figured. The laser targeting system is about 2 degrees off. The spinning blades are wobbling like they need new bearings, and I'm pretty sure that's not poison gas. That's just a really bad ventilation problem. Oh, thank the cosmic void, someone who understands. Yes, exactly. The poison gas generator broke centuries ago, so it's just been recycling stale air. And don't get me started on the crushing walls, they stick constantly. I've been filing work orders for repairs. But apparently the death trap budget got cut in favor of more dramatic lighting effects. That sucks, Dave. Listen, I need to get through here, but I don't want to mess up your equipment any more than it already is. Can you just turn it off for a minute? Are you kidding? I would love to shut this thing down. Do you know how stressful it is, watching people nearly get killed by malfunctioning equipment? I haven't slept in decades. Hold on. Let me flip the master switch. The room went quiet. All the deadly obstacles powered down with a series of mechanical sighs that sounded distinctly relieved. There we go, Dave said happily. Oh, this is nice. I should have done this years ago. Hey, while I've got you, could you maybe put in a word with management about getting some proper maintenance funding? And maybe some better working conditions for the facility staff? We don't even get dental. Sure thing, Dave. I'll see what I can do. Meanwhile, the other contestants were still outside the chamber, planning their approach. Vextar was psyching himself up for a frontal assault. Princess Alinea was trying to psychically disable the traps. Captain Thornspike was calculating attack patterns. And Dr. Mumbleton was building some kind of force field generator. The human has somehow befriended the maintenance staff, Quillsworth muttered, making increasingly frantic notes. This is not in the trial protocols. Maintenance staff are supposed to remain neutral. Have you tried being nice to them? I asked. Because Dave seems like a good guy, and he's been doing a thankless job for literally millennia. Maybe if you treated your employees better, your death traps wouldn't be held together with cosmic duct tape. The fourth challenge was supposed to be about resource management and shelter building in a hostile environment. We got dropped onto this barren planet with extreme weather, limited resources, and instructions to survive for 72 hours. The other contestants immediately scattered to gather materials and build individual shelters using their various skills. Vextar started punching rocks into building blocks. Princess Alinea used telekinesis to weave some kind of psychic tent. Captain Thornspike deployed emergency shelter protocols, and Dr. Mumbleton began constructing what looked like a geodesic dome made of calculations. I looked around at the barren landscape, then at the other contestants running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and sighed. All right, everyone, gather round. We need to have a team meeting. A what? Vextar stopped mid-punch. A team meeting. Look, we've got limited resources, harsh weather coming in, and 72 hours to survive. If we all build separate shelters, we're going to waste materials, duplicate effort. And probably half of us are going to freeze to death tonight. But if we pool our resources and work together, we can build one really good shelter that'll keep everyone alive and comfortable. The human suggests cooperation. Dr. Mumbleton looked intrigued. This is tactically sound, though unprecedented in trial history. I don't cooperate with weaklings, Vextar growled. Cool, I said. Then you can freeze to death by yourself while the rest of us are inside drinking hot chocolate and playing cards. Your call. Princess Alinea floated down, looking interested. The human's proposal has merit. Shared resources would increase survival probability exponentially. Plus, I added, we can set up a watch rotation, share cooking duties, and maybe figure out a way to make this place less miserable for everyone. Vextar, you're obviously the muscle, so you're on heavy lifting and security. Princess, you've got psychic powers, so you're perfect for early warning systems and communication. Captain, you know tactics and organization. Doc, you're the brains of the operation. Me, I'll coordinate everything and handle logistics. An hour later, we had the most efficient survival camp in trial history, complete with a fire pit, weather barriers, and a latrine that Vextar dug with surprising attention to proper sanitation protocols. This is highly irregular, Quillsworth observed, appearing with his clipboard. Contestants are supposed to compete, not collaborate. Says who? I asked, stirring a pot of soup that Dr. Mumbleton had somehow engineered from local vegetation. The rules said survive for 72 hours. They didn't say we couldn't be civilized about it. 24 hours into our survival camp experiment, something weird happened. Everyone started talking. Not about tactics or strategy or how to eliminate each other, but actual talking. Like about their feelings and stuff. It started when Vextar was on watch duty and I brought him some coffee. He'd been staring out at the horizon with that look people get when they're thinking too hard about things they don't want to think about. You doing okay, big guy? I asked, handing him the mug. I am Vextar the Destroyer, he said automatically. I do not experience emotional distress. Right. But hypothetically, if you did experience emotional distress, what would that look like? He was quiet for a long time, sipping his coffee. Then he said, hypothetically, a warrior who had been trained from birth to destroy and conquer might sometimes wonder if there was more to existence than violence. And hypothetically, that same warrior might be terrified of disappointing his entire civilization by revealing himself to be insufficient. That's rough, I said, settling down next to him. Performance anxiety is a killer. I used to get panic attacks before every employee review. You did? Meh. Oh yeah. Threw up before my first performance evaluation. Thought for sure they were going to fire me. Turns out, my boss was more nervous than I was. He'd never done an evaluation before and was convinced he was going to mess it up. We ended up just talking about how the coffee machine kept breaking and whether the office needed better lighting. Vextar considered this. In my culture, weakness is death. In my culture, pretending you don't have problems is how you end up having a nervous breakdown in the middle of a Walmart. Trust me, everyone's got stuff they're dealing with. The trick is finding people you can talk to about it. The next morning, Princess Alinea approached me while I was organizing our supply inventory. She looked tired, which was concerning since she usually floated around like she was powered by cosmic energy drinks. Human Marcus, she said formally, I require your counsel on a matter of personal significance. Sure. What's up? She glanced around to make sure no one else was listening, then whispered, I am a fraud. How so? Don't. I am not actually telepathic royalty. I am the seventh daughter of the seventh daughter of minor nobility, and my psychic abilities are considered barely adequate by royal standards. I was selected for this trial not because I am exceptional, but because my family wished to be rid of me without causing a scandal. Ouch, that's harsh. Indeed. I have spent my entire existence pretending to be more powerful and important than I am, because the alternative is admitting that I am utterly unremarkable. You know, I said, I've met a lot of people who thought they were unremarkable. Most of them turned out to be pretty interesting once you got past the part where they were trying so hard to be impressive. Plus, I've seen your psychic abilities in action. They seem pretty remarkable to me. You are merely being kind. Princess, you've been keeping early warning telepathic contact with local wildlife for the past day and a half. That's not barely adequate. That's incredibly useful. Just because you're not blasting people's minds apart doesn't mean you're not good at what you do. She blinked, processing this. I had not considered that perspective. Captain Thornspike was harder to crack, but it happened during the second night when he was trying to calculate optimal resource distribution and kept making mathematical errors because he was exhausted. Captain, I said, when's the last time you slept? Sleep is inefficient. I can operate at 73% capacity indefinitely with minimal rest periods. Yeah, but what about operating at 100% capacity after a good night's sleep? He paused his calculations. That would require trusting others to maintain security protocols in my absence. Right. And that's terrifying because you've been responsible for everyone's safety for so long that you've forgotten how to let other people help. I have never forgotten anything. Okay, poor choice of words. You've gotten so good at being the guy everyone depends on that you've forgotten it's okay to be human. Well, not human, but you know what I mean. Fallible. Tired. In need of backup occasionally. My civilization does not tolerate failure. Define failure, though. Is it failure to need 8 hours of sleep, or is it failure to make critical errors because you're so exhausted you can't think straight? Dr. Mumbleton's breakdown happened on day 3, right before the challenge was supposed to end. I found him sitting by the fire, staring at his equations with tears in his enormous eyes. What's wrong, Doc? I am a terrible scientist, he whispered. You literally engineered edible food from inedible plants using nothing but basic chemistry. How is that terrible? Anyone can do practical applications. I am supposed to be a theoretician, a visionary. I am supposed to understand the fundamental nature of reality itself. But instead, I am good at making soup and fixing broken equipment, and figuring out how to build comfortable shelters. So you're good at solving actual problems instead of abstract ones? It is not what I was trained for. My entire civilization values pure theoretical knowledge above all else. Applied sciences are considered pedestrian. Doc, I've got news for you. The universe doesn't care about your theories if they don't help anyone. You've made this entire survival experience not just bearable, but actually pretty comfortable. That's not pedestrian. That's miraculous. By the time Quillsworth showed up to end the challenge, we'd basically turned a survival scenario into a camping trip. We had comfortable shelters, good food, a system for sanitation, and everyone was actually talking to each other like people instead of representatives of their respective species. This is completely unprecedented, Quillsworth said, reviewing his notes. Contestants are supposed to eliminate each other through resource competition and environmental pressure. Instead, you have created a functioning community. Yeah, I said. Turns out people are generally more effective when they're not trying to kill each other. Who knew? The trial protocols specifically discourage cooperation. The trial protocols are stupid, Princess Zelenia said, which surprised everyone, including herself. I concur, Dr. Mumbleton added. Cooperation is vastly more efficient than competition for survival scenarios. Agreed, Captain Thornspike nodded. Shared resource management and coordinated defense strategies are tactically superior. Bextar just grunted, which in his culture was apparently equivalent to a full endorsement. Quillsworth looked like he was having a cosmic migraine. We need to proceed to the next challenge immediately. This level of cooperation is disturbing. The final challenge was different. Instead of being dropped into some elaborate death trap or hostile environment, we were brought to what looked like the universe's most depressing office building. Gray walls, fluorescent lighting, and that specific smell of industrial carpet and broken dreams that's apparently universal across all civilizations. Welcome, Lectia, Quillsworth said, to the true final challenge. This is the Galactic Administrative Center, the bureaucratic heart of our civilization. Your task is simple. Process 1 day's worth of interdimensional paperwork, handle customer service complaints from 47 different realities, and successfully navigate our filing system to resolve a series of urgent administrative crises. The other contestants looked around in horror. This wasn't a warrior's challenge or a test of psychic abilities or scientific knowledge. This was just office work. The most soul-crushing, mind-numbing, creativity-destroying office work imaginable. "I don't understand," Vextar said. "Where is the combat? Where is the honor?" "There is no combat," Quillsworth replied. "There is only Form 27B, which must be filed in triplicate with the Department of Interdimensional Affairs, but only after receiving approval from the Bureau of Reality Compliance, which requires a completed Form 19C, which can only be obtained by submitting a written request to the Office of Request Processing, which has been closed for maintenance since the heat death of the previous universe." Princess Zelenia tried to use her psychic powers to understand the filing system and immediately got a nosebleed. The bureaucracy it's alive. And it's angry. So very, very angry. Captain Thornspike deployed his tactical analysis equipment to map the office layout, and the scanners just started smoking. This is not a tactical scenario. This is chaos. Pure, administrative chaos. Dr. Mumbleton took one look at the customer complaint forms and started hyperventilating. These complaints are mathematically impossible. This person wants a refund for a purchase they haven't made yet in a timeline that doesn't exist for a product that was never manufactured. Meanwhile, I was looking around the office with growing recognition. The broken coffee machine. The printers that jammed every third page. The phones that played hold music from dimensions where music was considered a form of torture. The filing cabinets that seemed to rearrange themselves when nobody was looking. "This is just customer service," I said. "Just customer service." Quillsworth's voice cracked. "This is the administrative nightmare that holds our galactic civilization together. We have tried everything. We have sent our greatest warriors to battle the bureaucracy. They were consumed by filing procedures. We have sent our most powerful psychics to comprehend the system. They are still in therapy. We have sent our finest scientists to engineer solutions. They built a machine that just generates more paperwork." "Okay," I said, rolling up my sleeves, "but it's still just customer service. And I've been doing customer service for 15 years. I walked over to the first desk, where there was a cosmic entity sitting behind a computer screen, looking like it wanted to die. The nameplate said Blorgan, Customer Service Representative, 47,000 years of service. "Hey, Blorgan," I said. "Rough day?" Blorgan looked up with the dead eyes of someone who had processed too many complaints about interdimensional shipping delays. "Every day is a rough day, human. I have not had a vacation since the formation of the galaxy. How may I help you destroy your will to live?" "Let's start with getting you some help. You've been doing this alone for 47,000 years?" "Yes." "That's insane. Nobody can handle this volume alone. Where's your supervisor?" "Supervisor Claxon is in a meeting. He has been in the same meeting for 3,000 years. It is about improving efficiency." "Of course it is. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, we're going to implement a ticket system so you can prioritize complaints by severity instead of just handling them in the order they come in. Second, we're going to set up an FAQ section for the most common problems. Third, we're going to get you some backup so you can actually take breaks. That sounds wonderful, but it is impossible. This is how things have always been done." "Blorgan, buddy. That's how we've always done it is not a reason. It's an excuse. Let me show you something." I spent the next hour teaching Blorgan basic customer service organization principles. How to categorize complaints, how to identify which problems needed immediate attention versus which ones could be resolved with form letters, and how to escalate issues that were above his pay grade instead of trying to solve everything himself. Within 2 hours, we'd reduced his complaint backlog by 60%, and he was actually smiling, which apparently his species hadn't done in living memory. The other contestants were still staring in shock as I moved through the office. fixing broken systems with basic organizational principles and treating the cosmic bureaucracy like what it actually was. A badly managed customer service operation that nobody had bothered to optimize in a few million years. How is the human succeeding where our greatest minds have failed? Dr. Mumbleton whispered. Because, Quillsworth said slowly, none of our greatest minds have ever worked in customer service. They never learned how to deal with impossible requests, irrational people, and broken systems on a daily basis. They never developed the psychological resilience required to survive bureaucratic chaos. I reorganized the filing system using basic alphabetical order instead of the previous system, which appeared to be based on the emotional state of whoever was filing documents. I set up a complaint resolution workflow that actually resolved complaints instead of just moving them from one department to another indefinitely. I fixed the phones by turning off the hold music and replacing it with something that wouldn't drive people insane. By the end of the day, the Galactic Administrative Center was actually functioning. Paperwork was being processed efficiently. Customer complaints were being resolved in reasonable timeframes. The cosmic bureaucrats were taking lunch breaks and talking to each other like actual people instead of soulless administrative automatons. Impossible, Quillsworth breathed. You have done the impossible. You have made government bureaucracy work. It's not impossible, I said. It's just customer service. You treat people like people, you organize your workflows logically, and you fix broken systems instead of working around them. Basic stuff. Basic for humans, perhaps. But no other species has ever demonstrated this particular combination of persistence, problem-solving ability, and psychological tolerance for administrative tedium. That's when it hit me. This whole trial, it was never about survival skills, was it? Quillsworth sighed, a sound like air being let out of the universe's most tired balloon. No, it was not. The Galactic Survival Trial, Quillsworth began, was created approximately 10,000 years ago, not to test survival skills, but to find a species capable of managing galactic civilization's increasingly complex administrative requirements. He gestured around the now functioning office. Every species that has ever evolved to galactic civilization status has excelled in specific areas. Warriors, psychics, scientists, strategists, philosophers, artists. But none of them, absolutely none of them, have ever been able to handle the day-to-day bureaucratic nightmare of actually running a galactic government. Wait, Princess Zelenia said, so the previous winners were quietly given administrative positions, failed spectacularly within 6 months, and were reassigned to ceremonial roles while we continued searching for someone, anyone, who could make our government actually function. Vextar looked confused. But what about the species extinction threat? The survival trial? Marketing, Quillsworth said apologetically. We found that representatives performed better when they thought their entire civilization was at stake. In reality, we were just desperately trying to find someone who could organize our filing system without having a nervous breakdown. Dr. Mumbleton was frantically taking notes. So this entire trial was an elaborate job interview? The most elaborate job interview in galactic history, yes. And Human Marcus is the first contestant who has ever actually succeeded at the real challenge. I sat down in the nearest chair, which was surprisingly comfortable now that the office actually had proper ergonomic furniture. So Earth was never in danger? Earth was never even on our radar until you filled out that application form. Honestly, we sent those forms to every inhabited planet as a formality. Most species governments just throw them away. Yours was the only individual response we received. Because everyone else looked at 47 pages of government paperwork and gave up. Exactly. Which, in retrospect, should have been our first clue that humans might be uniquely qualified for this position. Captain Thornspike was studying the organizational charts I'd drawn up. These administrative structures are remarkably efficient. You could run an entire military campaign using these principles. You could run anything using these principles, I said. It's just basic organization and treating people like human beings. Well, like people anyway. Quillsworth pulled out what looked like a cosmic employment contract. Human Marcus Rodriguez. On behalf of the Galactic Administrative Council, I would like to offer you the position of Chief Administrative Officer for Galactic Civilization, with a starting salary of 40 billion cosmic credits per year, full dental coverage, and the authority to reorganize our entire governmental structure as you see fit." I looked at the contract, then at the other contestants, who were all staring at me with expressions ranging from amazement to existential crisis. "What about them?" I asked. "What about them?" "Well, they're all really good at what they do. X-Tar's great at security and logistics. Princess Zelenia's perfect for communication and coordination. Captain Thornspike knows strategy and organization better than anyone. Dr. Mumbleton can solve any technical problem you put in front of him. You can't run a government with just one person." Quillsworth blinked. "You're suggesting we hire all of them?" "I'm suggesting you hire all of them as department heads under a unified administrative structure that actually makes sense. Vextar runs security and facility management. Princess Zelenia handles interdimensional communications and diplomatic relations. Captain Thornspike manages strategic planning and resource allocation. Dr. Mumbleton heads up the technical solutions department. And I coordinate everything and make sure the systems actually work." "A team-based governmental structure," Dr. Mumbleton mused. "This is unprecedented, but theoretically sound." "It's more than theoretically sound," Captain Thornspike added. "It's tactically brilliant. Specialized expertise managed through coordinated oversight." "I have never considered a career in government," Vextar said slowly, "but the idea of bringing order to chaos appeals to me. And I could finally use my abilities for something meaningful," Princess Zelenia said, floating excitedly, "instead of just pretending to be important." Quillsworth was scribbling frantically. This could work. This could actually work. We could have the first functional galactic government in history. "Great," I said. "I accept the position, but I have a few conditions." "Name them." First, everyone gets dental coverage. Second, mandatory lunch breaks and actual weekends. Third, no meetings longer than 1 hour without a very good reason. Fourth, we implement a suggestion box system so employees can report problems and propose solutions. And fifth, I pulled out my phone. I need to call my wife and explain why I'm going to be a little late getting home from work. 3 months later, I was sitting in my new office, which had a view of 17 different galaxies and a coffee machine that actually worked, when Quillsworth knocked on my door. "Marcus, we have a situation." "What kind of situation?" 3 more species have applied to join our administrative team after hearing about our efficiency improvements. Also, the Department of Reality Compliance wants to know if you can help them organize their complaint backlog from the last 40,000 years. "Schedule a meeting for next Tuesday," I said. "And tell Reality Compliance we'll need to see their current filing system before we can propose solutions." "Oh, and Quillsworth?" "Yes?" "Make sure they bring coffee. Good coffee. None of that interdimensional swill." "Already taken care of, sir." I looked out at the galaxies spinning slowly beyond my window and smiled. Turns out the universe really did run on bureaucracy. It just needed someone who knew how to make bureaucracy actually work. And honestly, after 15 years of customer service in Detroit, running the galaxy was starting to feel like a pretty good gig. The dental coverage alone was worth it. 6 months after taking over as Chief Administrative Officer of Galactic Civilization, I received a message from Earth. My old boss at the customer service center wanted to know if I was interested in coming back, since they were offering a 50-cent hourly raise. I looked around my office, where Vextar was efficiently coordinating security for 12 star systems while Princess Zelenia mediated a diplomatic dispute between 2 species who had been at war for near 3 millennia but had forgotten why. Captain Thornspike was presenting a resource allocation plan that would end food scarcity in 17 galaxies, and Dr. Mumbleton had just invented a device that could solve any technical problem by asking it politely. I sent back a short reply, "Thanks, but I'm pretty happy where I am. Also, if you ever need help organizing your filing system, I know some people who might be interested." After all, good customer service skills are universal. even across the universe.